interrupt this program to bring you...
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kevin, and this is Real Guys Live, the podcast series where we get real discussing everything movies and television. Joining me today, I have the greatest minds of the Real Movie Guys universe. Let's go through everybody. John, say hello to the audience there.
Hello.
Adam.
Hello, everyone.
And last but not least, Julie.
Hi.
Yes, guys is an inclusive term, so you know. So yes, there is a woman joining us on the podcast. I know, we are a special team of misfits right here. So what I want to do, guys, is I want to start off, kind of shake off the butterflies a little bit. This is the first show. This show really, for you guys who are listening out there, is just for us to kind of give you our thoughts on what's going on in the news with entertainment. You know, everything that's going on. You know, there's so much news nowadays, right? You want to know what's important. This is kind of what this show's about. It's for us to give our thoughts, for you guys to get to know us. You know, we're just chatting, just having a good time. So, like I said, what I want to do is I want to start with what's everybody watching. There's so much stuff out there. We don't have time, obviously, to talk about it on the channel, to do special videos and everything like that. Let's start with Adam. Adam, what are you currently watching right now?
Okay, so recently, I have been binge watching Psych on Amazon Prime, actually. I don't know if anybody's seen the show Psych, but it is a fantastic show.
I think somebody here does. I know. I see some. You guys can't see it, but there's a certain person clapping over there.
I am obsessed with Psych. It is one of my all-time favorite shows. I had like a Psych pineapple plushie. It is so quotable, so iconic.
Absolutely.
I'm still behind on some of the movies, but it is amazing.
Yeah, they have. I saw they have the first movie is on Amazon Prime currently as well. So once I'm done with the series, I'm gonna go watch that as well.
No, Psych is a great show. I mean, it lasted a really long time, kind of longer than I thought, which is kind of ironic for a show that I didn't know was that popular. It has a huge cult following. I think they're on like 3 movies. There's 3 sequel movies at this point in time.
I think the third one is coming out, I think.
It might have just come out because I remember there was like a huge media blast for it, and they were going off like the whole "This Is Us" kind of, you know, packaging. This is Gus. But I've only seen the first movie. I just rewatched it recently because it technically is a Christmas movie. So I watched it around the holidays and meant to watch the other 2 and never got around to it. But I still constantly quote like Gus's "You hear about Pluto" pickup line. It's amazing.
I love it so much. It's such a good show. But yes, that's what I've been watching recently.
No, that's a good show. It's good to have a nice, like, longer show like that where you can just kind of like just jump in casually, watch a couple episodes. That's usually like the best thing I kind of like as far as watching a show. Just, you know, again, casual pickup, casual comedy is always good. John, what's going on, man? What are you watching? What's been new with you over there?
The only thing I've really been watching is the Book of Boba Fett. A little bit.
Well, that's like an awesome thing. So, okay, I give you that. Book of Boba has been pretty good. I kind of want to talk about that maybe at some point on the channel. How are your thoughts on it? What do you think so far?
I actually enjoy it. Like, from what I've heard other people talk about, how they don't like it as much as like The Mandalorian or anything like that. But like, you can't really compare it to that. I feel like
tough.
They're totally different things and totally different stories. But I think that like the creativity that they show in the show is really good. I think that it's a decent show so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because Boba Fett is a character where he just looks cool. He literally has no, if you're just looking at movie canon wise, he really has no backstory except with the prequels. They try to like shoehorn him in, which was always one of my things with George Lucas is why did you shoehorn like Jango Fett, his father, being the survey of the clones to make all these people? I don't know. I thought that was always just kind of silly. Book of Boba felt like a new like journey for the character, right? They're going to give him some kind of identity. I'm kind of mixed, honestly, right now. I've been watching it. I haven't watched the newest episode, which everyone says was kind of the best one. I think that's episode 5, you know, if you're watching the podcast right now. And actually, I think The Mandalorian's kind of in that episode. So it's, you know, say what you want about it. They say the best episode's the one that's not necessarily about Boba Fett. I don't know. You know, I'm on the fence right now. Adam, have you watched it at all? Have you given it a look?
Yeah. Episode 5 seems to be It's very interesting. I'll leave it at that, though.
Leave it at that. But what do you think? Do you
Yeah.
think do you think it's okay, the show, or kind of
It's solid. It's
lukewarm?
good.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
it's it's nice to have backstory, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. He's not what I expected, Boba Fett, at this point.
Right.
He's a
Yeah.
little kind of soft. Does that make any sense? I'm not expecting
Yeah.
it. He's a little too soft for my taste. I want him to be a little gruffer, a little meaner, especially because
also-
he was a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
He also takes his helmet off a lot.
Yeah, well,
I found that very odd going from like the Mandalorian to him, where the Mandalorian never takes off his helmet, and Boba Fett's like, I don't want to wear my helmet ever.
I guess that's kind of like if you're looking at like a lore reason, he's not like a hardcore, because they said like in the Mandalorian he was a hardcore follower of that Mandalorian religion, I guess. So that was kind of why he kept his helmet on the whole time. But whatever, is what it is. Boba Fett's interesting. Once it's over, I think we'll have a conversation where we can maybe all talk about it. That'd be something we should bring up, down the road. Right now, let's see where it goes. Julie, I'm sorry, I didn't even get to you. What did you think? I know you've been watching it because I've been watching it, so obviously you've been watching it too.
Yeah, I'm a huge Boba Fett fan. When I first saw him in the original trilogy, he's no good to me dead. I love him. And I agree, he's definitely a big softie, which I have mixed feelings about. I kind of love it because it's just cute. I mean, he's older, he, learned some different ways. He crawled out of, the Sarlacc pit, which there's an amazing clip from Parks and Rec with Patton Oswalt at one of the town meetings where he literally describes the whole opening sequence to episode 1. It's hysterical. But I do really,
yeah,
it's beat for beat. Someone did like a side by side. And that was years ago. So I don't know if maybe it was a little tongue in cheek kind of thing. But I just find it hysterical. And especially with Patton, that was like improv. But I do really love his right-hand woman, Fennec. She's super badass. I love seeing her kind of being, the voice of reason in some ways. Like, you got to show strength, and advising him in certain ways. But there's some elements to it that I think are a little goofy, like the cyborg teens that he took under his wing, But we'll see. I'm excited. We didn't get to episode 5 yet. But when we do, Kevin came in hot and heavy with a spoiler. I'm going to be very excited because he kind of, usurped Boba as my, one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters.
Listen here, that's not so much a spoiler. It was kind of expected. I didn't tell you what happened. I just said he shows up. That's all I'm saying, and it's pretty much the whole episode. All right, that's all you need to know from what I was told. 2 quick things I just want to touch on. The kids thing, the hot rod and teenager thing, is solely strange. I get why it's in there, though, because Robert Rodriguez directed that episode, and there was so many callbacks to Spy Kids with all their little gadgets and everything like that. I thought that was kind of silly. I don't like it in Boba Fett. I think it's really weird, but it's fun.
Yes.
Nonetheless. It's fun.
I mean, a solid Spy Kids reference. I mean, you can't go wrong with it, but it didn't necessarily fit.
No, it didn't fit. And his right-hand woman there is also the voice of Mulan. That blows my mind. I'm still like, speaking of voice actors that you didn't expect, I thought that was kind of interesting.
She was also in, I didn't watch it, but she was also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So people, say she's in like 3 major like franchise. She's a Disney princess. She was in the Marvel universe, and now she's in the Star Wars universe, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a pretty big accomplishment. I mean, Disney owns the world, so I guess you're going to show up in multiple franchises at some point if you're decent enough. That's just the way the world works right now. Anyway, last person real quick. Julie, what are you watching? I know what you've been watching, but tell everybody else what you've been watching.
Yeah, after much, begging and pleading, I just started watching Succession. I was on Succession TikTok for a while without having seen any of the show and was really intrigued by it. I started it in season 2 now. I really love it. It's, this giant billion-dollar family fighting over control, who will be next in line to take over. And the backstabbing is really intense. You love and hate every single character at the same time. It's really enjoyable, really funny at the same time. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment. I can't wait to finish and get caught up.
Yeah, Succession's really good. I kind of went into that show like, not really knowing what to expect. There is a lot of business jargon, which I'm still kind of like thrown about. Like, I don't really understand it, but I get enough of it so I can understand where the plot's going. Kind of wish I knew more. Maybe I wish I was smarter to some extent. I guess I'm not as smart as I typically think I am. That's on me. Hey, Adam McKay directed that, which I think is really cool, who's also in association with Will Ferrell, which is a really weird name to see pop up as a production credit for that show. That's where I think some of the comedy really lands, because you wouldn't expect it in this kind of show, especially because there's a lot of backstabbing, backdoor dealing, business stuff. And then you have this like random comedy that comes in, but for as random as it is, it's not that random. It actually fits into the tone of these terrible people who have a lot of money doing these absolutely terrible things. Good show, though, overall. I have to say, I was definitely much more impressed than I thought I would be.
Well, part of the humor too, it's like they're incredibly smart, but also very dumb at the same time. So just, the way they speak sometimes or the way they do things, there's a character, Cousin Greg, who's like, just walks in off the street, and because he's got a relation, he moves very quickly through the ladder and he has no clue what he's doing. And just seeing him, maneuver through, these business sharks is pretty comical at times.
No, it's good stuff. I highly recommend it. We just started about season 2, I think we're at right now. But again, good stuff so far. I can't recommend it enough. Now, what I've been watching is something, me and Adam actually covered this earlier on the channel last year. We watched Attack on Titan, was our anime, and we were blown away by, the first 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. Shameless to say, I kind of never went back and watched more until recently. My New Year's resolution was, I need to watch more anime. I'm losing my roots. I'm losing my grounds. I'm not watching as much as I really want to. So I said, all right, let's start with one of the best series I know. It's coming to an end this year, 2022. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm loving it right now, really, Attack on Titan. I think there were some dips in the season. Now, I know, Adam, are you up to date right now with
Absolutely
the show?
Not.
No? How far did you get when you watched it?
I think I finished season 2.
Okay, because season 2 and season 3, I'm not going into spoilers, but quality of animation is just not there, which is very strange. So I know I think it's season 4, they did change studios at one point, so it has a whole new look, whole different thing, which is really shocking because when we covered the show, I love the art. That's something we talked about so much, how much we love the style, love the way the look of the show. There's a big decline, man. I don't know. Giving you a forewarning, there's a lot of stills throughout it, like a lot of just still images of scenes happening and people talking. Some of the sizes, I know Julie, when we were watching it, even she's like, well, that person looks totally different from the way they just looked like a scene ago. I don't know what happened. I guess there was a lot of production issues from when I was researching it where they couldn't, they were trying to get it out because unfortunately the anime industry is a nasty, nasty thing. And putting stuff out constantly, there's a lot of crunch. And I think they were rushing, and it becomes obvious at times. And, it doesn't hurt the story. I think the story's there, absolutely, for the show. But it's just obvious, it's unfortunate. Again, not hurting the show. I'm loving the story. But, if you're someone who's into animation, it might bother you a little bit at times because it did for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the animation didn't really take away from my enjoyment of the show, but with like you said, certain characters, I think at one point, Erevin, he looked completely different. Like his face was elongated. I was like, what the heck happened to him? But the story is still so engaging and so intriguing that you're going to keep watching it. Me personally, I'm not well versed in anime, and the different styles of it. So the story is still super compelling. But sometimes, some images can definitely be pretty janky.
I know someone who's really well versed in anime, and they haven't said anything yet. John, tell everybody. Let me hear it. How much do you love anime? You muted yourself. That's for the listeners at home. He had so much to say, he had to put himself on mute. Oh, here he goes.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I have no clue about anime at all.
You love anime. What are you talking about?
It's like watching paint dry.
Hey, I made you watch, what was it, 2 years ago now? At this point, we watched Tokyo Godfathers. You thought that was all right. We watched that. That was a Christmas movie. You liked it. You thought it was all right.
That was one of the strangest Christmas movies to watch.
Well, I like having the outlier here because John hates anime. That's like a thing. That should be its own series at some point because, man, he really just, no matter what we watch, he finds something to not like about it.
Yeah.
Which he might be one of these people, which actually jumps us right into the news. You love that segue right there. So I came across this article when I was trying to find topics for us to, discuss and talk about. I found this article that was on Anime Galaxy Official. So take that news source for what it is. Breaking Bad fans have been review bombing Attack on Titan with 1-star ratings. Toxic fandom is such a horrible thing. Most of us are used to it, especially if you like anime. I think they're the most toxic of all the fans out there. I just think it's interesting to see. In this article, they talk about Attack on Titan is one of the best TV series, not only in the anime industry, but other entertainment sectors as well. The review ratings of the series are also pretty high on IMDb as compared to other famously known shows. But some people seem to be unhappy with the growing popularity of the series. Not a day has properly passed since Attack on Titan's episode 78 became the top-rated episode on IMDb with a perfect score of 10 out of 10. I didn't look at it, so I don't know any context of it, but you know, I'm getting there. But getting jealous of this few fans of the popular AMC series Breaking Bad started giving negative 1-star reviews to the series. Actually, before the release of Attack on Titan's new episode titled Two Brothers, Breaking Bad Season 5 episode titled Ozymandias was the top-rated TV episode on IMDb with over 150,000 votes, with an average user rating of 10 out of 10. But after the new episode of Attack on Titan premiered, things got a little heated up. In just 24 hours, episode 78 climbed to the second spot and received a user rating of 10 by almost 90% of the audience. So basically what happened is a bunch of Breaking Bad fans went into IMDb and review bombed the episode just so Breaking Bad could have the top spot. Now, does this affect anybody, like, in reality? Like, when you guys go to watch a show, like, I think most of us here, when we like a show, we just kind of keep going regardless of what the review says. But what do you guys think of this culture? You know, what are some of your guys' thoughts on this? What's going on here? I think this is crazy, especially to see two, literally a John audience going after a Kevin audience right here. I think this is kind of brutal, in my opinion.
I just find it to be super silly. The fact that, like, God forbid, I mean, Ozymandias, it's an amazing episode of television, but God forbid it's not the most amazing one on IMDb. I just find it to be, you know, very silly that they're like strategically going in and putting in those negative reviews. Like, personally, I don't have the time to do that. So the fact that they're taking time out of their day to just, you know, slam Attack on Titan with negative reviews, I guess that's a testament of fan dedication, but are they being dedicated in the right ways? And I don't even know how many years has it been since Breaking Bad ended. 10? Over 10? You know, like, just let it lie. Everyone knows it's one of the greatest shows of all time. You don't have to go in and trash another show because of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because Breaking Bad is an amazing show. I mean, it's definitely up there as one of my favorite shows of all time. Would I go in there and just like downvote another show just to be that guy? Not really. I mean, I guess I'm not passionate enough in that instance. You know, it's interesting because I know they also bring up shows like Game of Thrones and Chernobyl that have like top rated episodes that saw a shift. But again, you know, now John and Adam, what do you guys think? Now, do standings really bother you with the show? Because I feel like a lot of our culture now, at least when I see other people on YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that, I always see like Rotten Tomatoes being brought up, like, oh, the tomato score is whatever percent fresh, or the IMDb score is whatever point. Does that impact your like going into a show? Does that affect you guys at all when you think of it?
Not really. I mean, I'll look just more so out of curiosity.
Right.
But for the most part, if it's along something that I enjoy to either watch or experience or something like that, I'm just gonna go do my own thing. There's tons of stuff that I like that's not popular at all, and that doesn't affect me.
Right.
It's not, and I'm not gonna go out of my way to be like, oh, I will not stand for this, and just start, review bombing all these other shows just because my show isn't the number one or something like that. That's no, I'm not about that.
How about you, John? What are you doing over there? I know you're the guy. He's like keyboard warrior over here. He's downvoting everything he can.
Oh yeah, I got so much free time on my hand that I decided to make sure that my show is the number one show on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, I think it's interesting. Now I would pose this to you guys. Now, as far as a TV show concerned, if I'm watching it, I'm gonna keep watching it 9 times out of 10. I usually don't stop unless it's that horrific where I can't get through it. Now, a score would affect my opinion, I think, more on a movie. Like if I saw like a really low score on maybe like a movie, for example, I might be less inclined to jump into that. A good example for me. Now, I don't know what the score is exactly. I probably should be looking it up, but I'm just not going to do that right now. The new James Bond, right? I didn't jump into the new. I love James Bond. Don't get me wrong. I've seen every single movie except the newest one. It's something I didn't jump into because I saw there was like a mixed reaction, mixed score. For some reason, I keep putting it off. Does that come across to any of you guys? Is that something that happens to you where you just see that negative score and you don't really want to you just don't, I don't know what it is. Maybe I just don't feel like jumping into it for whatever reason.
I wouldn't, sometimes like if I'm interested in seeing a movie and then I look it up on IMDb and it has a very low score, definitely makes me a little more hesitant. But a lot of the time it's, it depends on the movie. It depends on the marketing. It depends on the content. I know Kevin and I have talked about this a lot. Sometimes there could be a drama that's coming out and it's getting critical acclaim, but you're not in the mood to watch, a movie about a duel in France. It's just one of those things. Like sometimes you have to be in the mood to watch a movie, a very specific movie.
Yeah, that's very specific. We've been trying to watch for like 20 years, it feels like.
And sometimes, the material's heavy and you gotta really build yourself up to watch it. So, I mean, I wouldn't say negative reviews necessarily impact me wanting to go see it. If I want to see something bad enough, I'm going to go see it.
John, Adam, anything? What do you got? How about you guys? How about Adam? What do you got? Do you have anything?
I guess it's more of like, yeah, I would say that probably happens because it's like, why am I gonna go waste my time, I guess,
right,
to see something that, might not be as good when I can go watch something else that's good or, go do better things with my time, I guess.
Yeah. No, I could see I could see that.
It does happen, I guess.
I'm kind of like that with Marvel to an extent too. Like I do end up watching those, and like I said, like I think it was Eternals was one where I was more like, I don't know if I feel like it, but eventually I did. It's fine. You end up getting to it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, like I'll get to it when I get to it. When it happens, I'll eventually. So it's not like as opposed to like Spider-Man, which I was like, got to be there day one.
Yeah, right. Now, John, do you think there's like a cool off period when you see a negative review? Like everyone's like, "Oh, this movie's terrible. I hate this. This is the worst thing." Then you give it like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, right? And then you go back and you jump in to watch it. It wasn't as bad as I thought. I don't know what everybody was talking about. Do you think that's a thing? Do you think there's like a little bit of a I feel like there's a bandwagon, right? That people just jump on as soon as they don't like something and they say it's like the worst thing in the world, but it ends up being like, it's okay.
Well, I also think too, like with, like especially when people go to like a movie theater. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if half the movie theater or over 3/4 of the movie theater hates the movie, but you kind of enjoy the movie, and you walk out and they get your opinion on it, you're like, oh no, I hated that movie. Like some people are just like not comfortable with their own opinion. They have to go onto other people's opinions and be like, oh no, I didn't like that for something. But for like most of these, even like these reviews that people look at, like you always got to judge it with a grain of salt because whatever you like is something else and somebody else could like something totally different.
Yeah, I mean, there's bias. There's bias in our reviews that we put up on the channel. I just put my Dune review up and I gave it an A+ and said it was the best movie of the year for me. Most people aren't going to think that, and I kind of talked about it briefly in the review where I just kind of said, this isn't going to be for everyone. It's going to be your taste. If you like a slow, story about world building and creating a sci-fi universe, this is going to be for you. But if you don't like that, it's gonna impact your review. There's always going to be a bias. As much as we try not to have a bias on a movie, it's going to come through. And I think it sucks, the review bombing. I don't know what we can really do to stop that. We're going to see just people doing that. I do like when we just have like honest opinions come through and we have like conversations like we're having now and we're just talking about movies and stuff. I think these are the conversations that people should be listening to. And I think overall, before you even listen to our review or anything like that, and I've always encouraged people in general, just watch the thing. That's how you're going to find out if you liked it or not. If you have an interest in it, don't listen to what anybody else says. Go watch it, then come back and see what other people said. And it's a fun conversation. I think I think maybe that aspect of a review is more important, just hearing the conversation once you're able to participate in it. I think that's more interactive and more fun.
Well, yeah, or at least go watch the trailer or something. Like,
right.
I think the trailer would tell you more about whether you're going to like a movie than somebody's review, score, or anything.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because Oh, Julie, I'm sorry if you want to go into that.
I was just going to kind of circle back to what Adam was saying about like wasting your time. Like if you're not interested in it, if it's a movie that's, at least 2 hours of your time that you're wasting. And now that theaters are opening back up and movies are being, exclusively shown in theaters as opposed to just free on various streaming services, you also have to think like, is it worth 2 hours of my time? And is it worth like $20 to $40 of my money to, buy the tickets, get the popcorn kind of thing. So, now that we're going back to normalcy, you have to think, is it worth my time and my money to see something that I'm just like, eh.
No, I think that's a great point. And again, this also ties into the Batman's coming out. Now, I know most of us here are pretty excited, I think, for that movie. I don't really see anybody shaking their head no, unless John is, but he's not moving his head at all, so I couldn't tell you what he's doing. March 4th, we're going to see the Batman come out, and the New York Post actually posted this interesting article talking about the runtime. Now, I don't know about you guys. I feel like movies are getting longer and longer to the point where what am I watching? I mean, it might as well just, it should be a TV show. Like, there's a conversation to be had here. But we're seeing right now that it looks like the Batman is going to be one of the longest running films of the comic book, universe as far as movies. Looks like as of right now, this article said that Matt Reeves' directed thriller is going to be about 2 hours and 55 minutes. That is a long time. That's almost 3 hours. Avengers Endgame, I think, was it longer? I want to say.
I just looked it up. Endgame is 3 hours and 2 minutes.
Wow. Okay, so that's a long time, and that was like the climatic end to a whole entire cinematic universe of movies. What are your guys' thoughts on the Batman being this long? Adam, what are you thinking with that's a long time for a movie to sit there in a theater.
It is, but it's not like I haven't done it before. I mean, we did it with Endgame. I've done it with Dune. So, both of those movies are pretty,
Yeah,
long.
Dune's pretty long.
And if it's done well, it doesn't even feel like it's long. I've experienced that multiple times where I sit there and I'm like, wow, it's been, however long. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. And I know I read that they're gonna stay away from, like, I guess the origin story for Batman.
Okay. I didn't
this
know
movie.
that. That's pretty
So
interesting.
because it's already been done before.
Right, we've seen it a million times.
A million times.
And I'm totally open for, just almost 3 solid hours of just Batman. That sounds amazing to me. So I have no problem.
How about you, John? I know you're an impatient man over there. What do you think? Do you like? How are you? What are your thoughts on the runtime being that long? Are you okay with it, or what do you think?
I'm fine with it. I feel like people are making such a big deal about like this movie being almost 3 hours when there's so many other movies out there that are like 3 hours plus or whatever, and you're just like,
right.
They're boring. Like if a movie catches your attention throughout the whole thing, it doesn't matter how long it is, as long as you're enjoying it. Your experience is what really makes it. How good the movie is gonna make you not worry about time. There's movies that you could watch an hour of it and it feels like 5 hours, and you're just like, all right, that's terrible.
No, that was like me. Zack Snyder's Justice League is actually referenced in this article, and that was over 4 hours long. Now, I didn't finish it, and it's not because I didn't like it, but I just didn't. I don't know. I'm one of those guys. I want to sit there and watch the whole thing. When I'm gonna find 4 hours of my day to watch a movie, that's a little. That's some dedication right there. I could probably do it in chapters. They do break it up into chapters on HBO Max, so that's probably something I should look into doing. I think it's fine. What makes me kind of convinced that this might be okay is the latest clip that came out for the Batman. Now, I know I shared it with all you guys, this clip that they're showing for the movie, and the tone for this movie is not what I expected at all. Most superhero movies, I feel like, have been, the Marvel universe in particular has just been like the comedy, super-powered action genre. Batman's giving us something that I think I've always really wanted. They're giving us this gritty thriller. And the clip that they showed, just to set up a little bit of context for you guys at home, the clip shows Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne at a funeral. And suddenly, they hear this noise outside and a car comes crashing into the funeral rams into like the front where the casket is, and a guy comes out with a bomb strapped to him, and he has a cell phone, and it has a message, to the Batman. I think the car says like DOA on the car. It's like spray painted, I believe. And then he looks up top, and you see a figure standing there, which is, I'm assuming, is the Riddler. I don't think that's a spoiler. He's in the poster. He's in the trailer. I just thought that was really different, especially because I actually felt like you could feel like your heart racing a little bit. Like it's setting up some kind of tension, which I don't feel like we've had recently in these kind of superhero movies.
Yeah, like in the beginning, like when you talk about the noise, and it goes on for a while because again, they're at a funeral, so the church itself is mostly quiet. You have some murmurs, but then you hear muffled just screams. And it goes on for a while before the car actually comes crashing through. So it does a really nice job of building tension. And like you said, with the grittiness, that's what Batman is. He's dark. He's gritty. He's a vigilante who beats the crap out of people at night. You know what I mean? So he shouldn't be cracking jokes. And the movie is being, billed as a thriller. So I think it really does a nice job of that. And even, going back to runtimes, if you compare the runtime for like a movie like Seven or Zodiac, they're around like 2.5 hours. So it's not that far off from that kind of runtime there. But I'm very excited for this.
Adam, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this like gritty world right here?
I like it. I just think it's ironic that it's still only a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, that kind of bothers me too a little bit. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I kind of wish it was R. I think I should have pulled the
Yeah.
trigger on it.
Yeah, me too.
That makes me nervous.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like you can only do so much with a PG-13 rating. So
Yeah, but we've seen the envelope pushed. I think
Yeah.
occasionally. I mean, I don't need to see the gore if you're giving me the death. Because that's maybe the biggest thing. If you can build tension, some of the best movies I think do build tension, just even with a PG-13 rating. Good example, in my opinion, not that it's like the same genre, but The Conjuring was always one I always like feel like it pushed the envelopes of that tension. Nothing really horrific's happening. I mean, yeah, it's like a possession, there's a haunting, stuff like that. But the tension was always there in a scene. Like you can always feel like something like unnerving, unsettling.
Right.
And I'm definitely getting this vibe from the Batman. And I think more importantly, like John, I know you've read a few Batman comics in your time. I know you're not totally, he's got a little bit of nerd culture in him. He can't admit that he doesn't. What do you think about them focusing, from what I can tell, that they're focusing on the detective aspect of this story? Like there really is a big push for the mystery. Now, how do you feel about that? Because like you said, we've grown up with like the Tim Burton's Batmans and everything in between, Adam West. We've seen it all. What do you think about this new angle that they're taking Batman for someone who is pretty much used to just like the typical action guy?
No, I think this is like a more interesting angle too to take. Like even just when we were watching that clip alone, that clip drew me in so much more to wanting to watch this movie even more because of not just the way that it was put together too, because it's very dark, cringy, like almost one of those movies that like you would think about, like that's the character you want Batman to be in that way.
Yeah, I mean, Batman's always been associated with, the guy on the street, right? He's the guy taking down the low lives that no one else wants to deal with. I mean, he's got a crazy rogues gallery of insane people, from, low-level street thugs, the Joker to some extent, to like people like Clayface and other like insane things. Like Batman kind of deals with everything, which I feel like he's the most interesting out of even out of the Marvel characters. I feel like Batman is the most interesting, maybe next to Spider-Man, who has like the most interesting rogues gallery. But Batman just has like a crazy assortment of things going on, and he kind of fits into whatever the situation calls for. He could be fighting a thug, or he could be fighting Superman. Somehow he's winning. I don't know, whatever. But Batman he fits the mold into anything you want to tell. So again, I don't know what DC's really doing. I think they're going into maybe that other. I don't know if they're trying to tie all their movies together. I think they kind of somewhat given up on it to an extent. We'll see when The Flash comes out. That might be another conversation we'll have. But I like them just trying something. Throw it to the wall, see what sticks. Not all our movies need to be a Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's great. We have a cinematic universe. Now let me have an alternative for something else for me to go to. I think that's more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty solid because it gives me more variety.
Right. We like variety here on this channel. We really like to talk about different things. So let's go into this other story. So speaking of variety, we have a lot of video gamers here. A lot of us play video games. Julie is the Animal Crossing queen over there, the Sim queen.
I would say Sims more so. I would love to be an Animal Crossing queen, but I hate my island right now, so it's definitely not queen
I have
work.
to show you my island.
We'll have to visit later.
Yeah.
I need I need your guidance.
John's been known to tangle with Halo every now and then, right? We played a couple games here and there. I think we haven't in a while. We actually need to do that. That's kind of all of us do actually, except Julie. Julie hates Halo, so that's even funnier that we're going in to talk about Halo. There was a Halo TV trailer that came out. Now, the actual full trailer is coming out tomorrow. From the time we're recording this on a Saturday, it's actually coming out on the Sunday, the 30th. But there was a sneak preview. Now, Adam, I know you're a huge Halo fan.
Mm-hmm.
With this sneak preview, what are your thoughts? Now, we've had a lot of video game movie adaptations. We've seen a lot, to put it lightly. What are your early thoughts on this first sneak preview that we had for Halo?
Uh,
Oh, hold on. Adam cut out. He'll be joining us back in a moment. Now, John, what do you think about Halo?
I mean, from what I saw so far, it seems like it could be interesting. But my always problem with video games turning into shows or movies, that always makes me question is it going to be good?
Right.
Because very few of them have been decent.
Right. Now, Adam. Now that you're back, we've unfrozen you from the frozen sands of Zoom call. Now, what are you thinking? Because I know Master Chief's your buddy there.
Oh yes. I had no idea I was frozen. Okay.
Yeah, you were frozen. That's okay. We went on. We segue. So if you guys hear some jumbling around, hey, we're doing our best. All right. We can't control the internet.
I was saying that I enjoyed seeing Master Chief in real life.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Right.
Especially because the Halo, I guess anything besides the game has been a long time coming, because there was the Halo movie that was, rumored to come out years ago.
Right, which ironically led to one of my favorite movies of all time. Right. District 9 is one of my it's one of the most unexpected movies that I still think the marketing for that movie was pure genius. They filmed a separate scene that had nothing to do with the movie, just told you kind of that there was this alien in a conference room being interrogated, and that's all you knew. I mean, even beyond that, there wasn't much to the marketing beyond the posters, aliens go home or whatever it was. That movie, I don't know. I still think we need to do some kind of marketing like that with some movies today, just to leave that excitement. Because, and it's funny too that most of the weapons that were found in that movie were actually reconfigured Halo weapons because it didn't work out. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny.
But yeah, back to your point. Like I said, so you were... Sorry, I totally interrupted there. I get excited when we talk District 9. That's a movie.
Sidetrack City.
I get excited. Yeah, I love it. Oh my god.
I'm interested to see the second trailer tomorrow. Right. I don't know, because that little short that had come out however many years ago that was so cool, that was directed by Neil Blomkamp.
Right.
That was so cool, and I'm interested to see if this will kind of hold my attention, because having Halo as a game, it's already got competition. The story of Halo is, to a certain extent, so inviting, and it's all so interesting to me, and I don't know if this is going to hold up as well. So I'm interested to see how it goes.
Right. I think the hardest thing, and this is, we're not a gaming channel, so I'm not going to go into gaming statistics and, stuff like that, explanations. A lot of the people, when you talk to the people who play Halo, it's usually not about the story. 9 times out of 10, it's usually we like the multiplayer. That's what we play. End of story. I personally do like the canon. I've always enjoyed the story mode, maybe more so than a lot of other people. Now, to take that story and tell it to just a regular audience, like Julie, we talked about this earlier. You have no interest in Halo, so it's going to take a little bit of convincing, I think, for you to actually like this and become immersed in this story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about it at all, other than it's a multiplayer game, you shoot stuff. I'm familiar with some of the imagery, Master Chief and Cortana. No,
okay,
right.
She's
cool.
Got it. She's on the right track.
I'm glad. So just looking at the trailer, and again, it's based off a video game. Those are, you have your 2 iconic images. Every other character that they're showing in this trailer just seems so generic. I don't know if that's the point. I have no intrigue at all in watching this, but again, I don't have that background. I've never played a Halo game. So yeah, it's going to take a lot of convincing to get me to watch that.
Yeah, and I like Adam kind of said, it has an interesting story behind like that first failed movie attempt. A lot of people don't remember it was supposed to be a Showtime show for a while. There was like 10 episodes that were greenlit. There's actually an article released by Collider where they discussed it a little bit, just saying, it was greenlit by Showtime. However, something weird happened. I guess the pandemic caused an issue with it to be produced, and Showtime kind of like just traded it over to Paramount Plus. Now,
it was that recent. It was supposed to be on Showtime.
Yeah, it was
right before the pandemic.
Thing. Yeah, it was supposed to be, and then I don't know what happened. Now, John, as someone who I don't think you have Paramount Plus, would that be something like that would make you subscribe to that service? Is Halo something that's going to drag you over?
Probably not.
No, it's not doing it for you. It's not enough.
No.
What would it take? What would it take for you? What could Halo do? Could Halo itself do anything to get you to come over there?
Yeah, make Paramount Plus be less expensive.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother conversation. I think we'll be talking about I think streaming services are as much as cable at this point if we add them all up together. My big worry is, and I think it comes with everything, is the budget, right? I mean, Halo, it's an expensive property, right? It just by nature of it being this sci-fi story, it has to be expensive. You can only cut so many corners. Like, I feel like, and we were talking about Book of Boba Fett in a way, they cut their corners. They do what they can. They kind of keep it secluded in one area, try to, wean off that budget. I mean, they have Disney money. I don't know what kind of money. I mean, I guess Halo has Paramount money, right? Showtime, Paramount money, depending on when it was produced and made. I don't know if it's going to be enough, because when I think of Halo, I think of, these massive escapes of outer space and ships and sprawling lands full of things. I don't know. I don't know. You guys have any concerns about that? Adam, I know especially you. Do you have a concern about that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it goes back to our conversation that we had earlier. Like, I'm personally not subscribed to Paramount Plus currently. If the show is good, maybe I'll go do it.
Right.
But I'm not entirely sure because it's like that. It has to be done so well that it has to, really hold my attention like the games do.
Right. And there's another adaptation, I think, that's coming out that I know a lot of us are also pretty excited for. Uncharted released their final trailer. Uncharted's going to be coming out, I think it's next week, it looks like at this point from this time of recording. Or maybe 2 weeks. I could be wrong. Doesn't matter at this point.
I think it's the 18th of February.
Okay, so 18th of February. Now, Uncharted, for those uninitiated, we see Tom Holland, who was just in the popular Spider-Man franchise, assuming the role of Nathan Drake. I had mixed feelings. I think a lot of us, to some extent, had mixed feelings when we saw the casting. We had Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg as Sully. I didn't know what to think. It seemed like just very interesting casting. Once I saw this final trailer, I think I'm a little more sold on it. How are you guys feeling about it? John, I know you've played some of the Uncharted games. How do you feel about this movie coming out? Do you have any early thoughts on what you've seen so far?
So far, not really. Like, it's definitely an interesting cast of characters to put in this. So it's kind of like makes you curious to see what they're going to do, but not really sold yet on it.
Okay. All right. So John's not sold. Adam, where are you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's mostly because the games are so good. It's its own competition, really.
I'm glad you said that, because this is my issue, and I think this came down to when I even watched the Halo trailer. That's why I kind of want to put these two situations back to back here. Is you become associated with a character, right? Like Nathan Drake, I'm so associated with him playing the video game that seeing somebody else be Nathan Drake is going to be hard for me, regardless if the performances are good or not. If the performance is really good, then it'll outshine and I'll be okay. But going into it, I'm always going to have this hesitation or the back of my mind, like, I've seen that done better to some extent. I've seen it. I'm familiar with this. Kind of like Master Chief is the same way. Like, whatever they're doing with Master Chief, I've seen him done already. I've seen him in a better way. I've lived that experience. That translation from game to movie is a lot harder than people think, because gaming is such a personal experience to where you are that character to an extent, right? You're controlling that character's motions. You're involved in that story. The two mediums are so special in that way, where you can have two such different experiences, that making that jump can be really hard. And I feel like Uncharted's going to have a little bit of that. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think that it may struggle, honestly. I because it's not only do you have to appeal to, just the normal
Right.
moviegoer fan base, but you also have to appeal to the people that play the games.
Right.
And that's a very high bar that they set for themselves.
Yeah, look at anime fans. Oh boy.
Yeah.
If they think
right.
anime fans are bad, wait till they get to Sony fanboys. Oh boy,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a problem. Now, Julie, we've dabbled with Uncharted. I know you're not. You've watched me play. You've played. I think you played some of the first one actually at some point.
I did play some of the first one and I did enjoy it. I'm definitely not, as well versed with it, but what I've seen, what I've played, I do like. And just from my limited knowledge, I don't know and I love Tom Holland. I don't know if he's the best fit. Yes, he looks like a young Nathan Drake, but based off the trailers, he just seems like too goofy. Like the fact that like in that one scene where they're flying from the plane or whatever, and he kicks the guy, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think Nathan Drake would do that. And it's challenging because again, it's a prequel, I guess, right, to the events of the games, right? They're playing younger versions.
I don't know.
Mark Wahlberg doesn't look like Sully. Sully's always been like gray, white hair, right? Like, I don't know. Again,
right.
I'm not super well versed in the material. But yeah, Tom Holland just seems like too nice as a Nathan Drake and too kind of goofy. Like Nathan Drake, from what I understand, like he knew his stuff. He knew his history. He knew about treasure hunting. So he just seems like just some kid being thrown into it based on the trailers. I will say Mark Wahlberg, I'm hot and cold with him. He seems to be bringing like a nice element of humor to this movie. I got a few chuckles out of him. Again, I don't know if he's the best person to be playing Sully. I'll definitely watch it. I'm not going to run to the theater to do it. Maybe on like that discount Tuesday. I don't know. It could go either way.
No, I see what you're saying. I think that Nathan Drake kind of is that goofball from what I know from playing the game. Like he does make like little sarcastic comments. He kind of is like that. My problem
I get the sarcasm, but he just seems like goofy.
My problem is I think the translation, like we talked about, like that the scene that we've seen in the trailers, and especially that's in this final trailer, is the cargo being flown out of the plane and he's crawling back up to try and get to the plane. It's a totally impossible situation that is not going to happen in real life. Now, in a video game, that's fine, right? I think we all come to accept there's going to be crazy sequences. We look forward to something like that. Take that sequence, put it in a movie. We're having a little bit of a different conversation to some extent. He is just a normal guy going through this, and he's kind of acting casual about it. It's this really impossible scene, and he's just kind of like taking it lightly, like it's no big deal. There's a car flying at him, and he's like flipping over it. It works in a game. Does it work in a movie? I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Adam, what do you think?
I think the other issue I have is that Tom Holland is just, when I see him, I see Spider-Man, and it's like he can't get out of that role.
Oh man, I know.
I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, and especially in that specific scene, it's just I can see Spider-Man doing this.
Or almost like he seems like Peter Parker playing Nathan Drake.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Right. Now, John,
Yeah,
what do you think about that? Because now you're only, I mean, I think all of us really are only familiar with Tom Holland from Spider-Man. That's kind of what we just associate him with. Unfortunately, that does happen to actors. Some of the greatest actors in the world just can't escape a role. And I don't know if Tom Holland's encroaching on that to some extent with his career. What do you think, John?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with what everybody's saying. I feel like that's one of the problems too with actors and actresses when they play such a big role in a movie that they're always to that character then, and it's very hard to like think about them as different characters.
Right. And I think to some degree I have to say it Mark Wahlberg is just Mark Wahlberg. No matter who he plays anymore, he's become a meme of himself. And I love Mark Wahlberg. I don't want this to sound like I don't like him, because I do, but no matter what role he plays, no matter what movie it is, it's Mark Wahlberg. He's just one of those actors. There was a movie that came out relatively recently. I don't know if you guys saw a trailer. I don't even know what happened to it. I think it did come out on Paramount Plus. He dies and he becomes like reborn or something where he's like
He
reincarnated.
gets like reincarnated.
Yeah, it's like his memories. I'm like, what the hell is this story? It's Mark Wahlberg. Like, it makes no sense. It's just like someone was reincarnated as Mark Wahlberg. Like, I don't care who he was in the past. Again, he just can't escape it. I think some of the comedy does look pretty good. I think him and Tom Holland will have decent chemistry. I think what this will be better for, maybe a fan base, a new fan base will be created here. Maybe someone who's like first introduced to these movies. I think will have an easier time adapting to it. Will the video game crowd have an easy time? Kind of like Adam said, I think it's going to be really rough. I think it's going to be a hard time.
Part of my hope is, if the movie does do well, like maybe they'll see like a progression of Tom Holland's Nathan Drake become a little more serious. Because in the games he's sarcastic, but he just seems like outright goofy. Like, again, like I said, he looks like Peter Parker playing Nathan Drake, like, oh, I'm sorry, or oh, this is a crazy situation. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think, studios see his success as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker, and like, oh yeah, do that. You're recognizable for do that. And he's such a young actor to already being, pigeonholed into that imagery and into that character. It's going to be tough for him to break free of that.
Yeah, I mean, look at Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what he does, he's Harry Potter. Yeah. And I mean,
he'll be Weird Al.
He's going to be Weird Al. That's something we ought to talk about someday, because I can't wait for that trailer to drop and we talk about that. I never thought I would hear the day of that. It's funny we're talking about Tom Holland, because I kind of want to segue into what I thought was one of the best January movies I've ever seen, which usually isn't saying much for January. For what most people at home don't know, January is like the dumpster month of movies. Usually that's when the studio just unloads garbage. Right. I mean, for the most part, horror movies are especially significantly there's always a terrible horror movie in January. I think like Bye Bye Man was one of them. There's quite a few, I mean, you can just go through, especially Blumhouse. If you want to look through their catalog, it's always the dumpster of movies that month. I was really surprised. I actually was able to catch the new Scream movie and blown away. I think it's probably like an A+ range for me, actually, for how good that movie was. I had no business being as good as it was. And it's interesting because it actually was able to dethrone Spider-Man about 2 weeks ago when it first came out. They crushed it in the box office. At this time of reporting, when we're looking at this right now, it's about $85 million at the worldwide box office, and from a $24 million budget, which I think is insane, especially for a horror movie in January, post-pandemic at this point. That's a lot of money. I mean, Spider-Man broke all these records, but Scream, I think it's interesting. And how this also ties into the whole conversation I want to have here is, what do you guys think about nostalgia? Scream is famous for mocking nostalgia. This whole new movie pretty much mocks horror, essentially, making fun of, like, I think they call it a three-boot at some point, where they, or a threequel, I'm sorry. They call it a threequel.
No, I think it's a requel.
Requel, maybe?
It's like a reboot sequel, something like that.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot. I mean, most of the movies we talk about, unfortunately, I think are sequels or reboots of something. Where there was always the joke, there's no original ideas in Hollywood. There really isn't. And you look at the two top movies right now, Spider-Man and Scream, which are both heavily reliant on nostalgia. Which, Spider-Man, I don't think there's any spoilers at this point. I know Marvel themselves released images, so sorry, if you haven't seen it by now, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to go too deep, but Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the movie. All right. I mean, like I said, officially we can talk about that now. They show up in the movie.
The three of them did an interview.
Yeah, they did an interview. It's been talked about now at this point. So we're not hiding it. Sorry, John. I don't think you saw Spider-Man, did you?
No, I did not see Spider-Man.
No, but whatever. You don't care. But yeah, like I said, what do you guys think? This interesting nostalgia thing, we're seeing it done really well, and in my opinion, I know Julie also, we saw Scream, we really liked it. Spider-Man did a good job with nostalgia. We're seeing it handled the right way. Ghostbusters Afterlife, I did check out. There should be a review coming up on the channel shortly about that movie. I thought they actually did it well. I know there was some controversy with how people felt about that. What do you think's going on? What is the zeitgeist that's being created here? Julie, let's go into you. What are your thoughts with all this nostalgia stuff that's happening right now, especially in movies? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What are you thinking?
Well, in general, I'm definitely a sucker for nostalgia. Those three movies that you referenced do a really good job of hitting those notes the right way, making you feel the way you're supposed to feel. Like Spider-Man, for example, my heart swelled seeing the three of them on screen together. It hit everything you wanted it to. Ghostbusters too. I watched Ghostbusters later in life. I wasn't a kid who grew up on it. And the newest one, it does hit you in the feels. It's a love letter from a son to a father. And Scream, same thing. Scream's back to form. It's hitting all the nostalgia beats. So again, I'm a mush when it comes to that. So those three movies did it very well. And I think the whole part is, we've been in a shit show for the past, 2 years, 3 years, and nostalgia is comforting. People, seek that out, and we need to be comforted in these times. We're still in the thick of this craziness that's happening in the world. So I think that, movies and television see that, but I've been really happy with those three projects in particular about being, in my opinion, respectful to the fans. I know Ghostbusters is a little divisive, but more so Scream and Spider-Man especially, really, respecting their fan bases, giving them what they want, paying tribute to, and this is more Spider-Man, honoring those characters that everyone loves so much. So I'm really happy with it. I mean, is nostalgia always done right? No. The newer Star Wars trilogy, speaks for that. And again, like I said, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. When I first saw Force Awakens, I loved it. I loved all those nostalgia beats. And then watching it again later, I was like, that was, a little pandering. So it has to be done the right way. It has to be done, thoughtfully. So I'm hoping that future nostalgia projects, kind of take the lead of Spider-Man and Scream, and, being mindful, not just doing nostalgia for nostalgia's sake.
No, those are all great points, and I have to agree with you on just about everything there. Now, Adam, where are you around nostalgia? Now, have you had any examples of bad nostalgia that come up to you, that the things that just haven't really quite worked for you? One for me, which will be another review that's coming out soon on this channel, The Matrix Resurrection. Oh boy. I think I threw up in my mouth. I think I threw up. Julie hates The Matrix in general. So, but me, for someone who was a fan of the original Matrix, seeing that movie, just that was wrong. There's a lot of really bad things that happen where there's just like nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia without giving it a purpose. What are some of your thoughts, Adam? What's going on with you?
I don't know. I can't really remember anything that I've been affected, at least in movie or TV show wise,
Right.
negatively for nostalgia. But I know nostalgia is a very powerful thing, especially if it is done correctly, like Julie mentioned. Because it just takes us back to a time when, in this case, when there was no pandemic, when things were much easier and we just go about our lives much better. And I think that it takes, brings people to a nicer place, I guess, if you will.
Right. And I feel like to some degree, I don't know. I guess I was going to say, I feel like sometimes it's weaponized against an audience. And I think that's maybe more so towards The Matrix. Again, I hate to keep bringing that movie up because, God, I don't want to talk about it. But I find myself talking about it a lot more than I want to. Julie knows because I haven't shut up about it because I was writing the review.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's become weaponized in some extent where it's like, and I think Disney is maybe the more, one I associate with them weaponizing it. John, I know you know this, especially with watching a lot of the live action remakes. I feel like that's like weaponized nostalgia. Would you agree with that? Where they're taking something you love and saying, "Here's more of it. I'm shoving it in your face. I hope you like it."
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things like we were talking about earlier too, where they can't, or we were just talking about too. They can't come up with new ideas. They're always trying to reuse the same thing and put it in a different way so people just buy almost the same thing. It's kind of like selling people different things but putting a different wrapper on it. There's some new things to it, but mostly it's reused, recycled material.
No,
it's so true, especially with Beauty and the Beast is probably one of my favorite Disney movies, and the live action for it is absolutely horrible, but it made so much money. People went and they liked it. I don't know how they liked it. So I think Disney especially is, I guess, weaponizing it. I actually just realized after we were talking a little bit, I just watched Dexter New Blood, and that's a show where I feel like it was a very mixed bag. They did a good job with nostalgia sometimes, and then other times they just threw stuff in to throw stuff in. So sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. And it was one of those things, after being apart from that character for so long, like there were certain beats that they brought back and you're like, this is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I was missing. And then they'll, show a character from the original show and you get so excited and then they do nothing with it. So again, it's all about doing nostalgia the correct way, and really thinking about your fan base and thinking about your storyline when you're doing it, not just putting stuff in to put stuff in.
Yeah, I can't stress to you how important that is, to make sure that your story is tied to the nostalgia correctly, not just putting it in there going, oh, remember when this happened? I love to reference, and I think it's perfect. It's a perfect commentary on the industry. The South Park episode about the member berries, like, oh, remember this? Oh, remember when this happened? It's so true. That is exactly what Hollywood is right now. And for those at home, Scream really references that a lot, which I thought was Scream always has an interesting, like, carving, no pun intended, into like the society where they commentate on what's going on in Hollywood. And I think this movie, more so than a lot of the other ones, really commented on that society that we live in, where Hollywood is just like, all right, let's do it again. We got a sequel. And they have this whole tirade where they go on talking about just like like I said, the rebooting of the sequel, the resequel, whatever it is, just talking about that, going through it. I think that's really interesting. Disney's back in the news as well, segueing into something new a little bit here. Maybe not new. Aristocats is coming back. I don't know if any of you really care about that. Is there any Aristocat fans out there? Anyone really into that?
I mean, it's a cute movie. It's got catchy songs.
Adam's dancing over there. I think he likes Aristocats.
Everybody wants to be a cat.
Oh man, we got a concert. That's not good. You guys can't even pay at home for that. That's pretty good. John, I know, is Aristocats fan, right? You really like the Aristocats over there?
I don't think I've ever watched it. To be
honest. Boy. Oh, well, this guy, Mr. Disney over here, he's never even watched Aristocats.
For shame.
Disney's continuing. What else is there to say? When I hear about these things, I'm so like, it's happening, right? I mean, I feel like it's just a matter. It's a matter of time. Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Sword in the Stone, these have all been things that they've been talking about.
Well, it's almost,
ahead,
like the same thing like we were just saying, too. They literally are going to remake the movie, and let's just add live action people to it and say, hey, we have a new movie for you.
Yeah, and I think that
but
comes
it's
to
the
that
same thing.
Right, and that's that conversation. Is like Lion King, that's technically not live action. They're still computer generated. They're still animated. That's not real. If there's nothing real in your movie, it's not live action. All you did was a CGI Lion King. You didn't do a live action Lion King unless you had real lions on the set doing stuff. Then maybe it's live action. It's not. It didn't happen.
That's how they screwed you, Kev. They said, hey,
I was
live action.
I wanted real lions
Somebody
on my
might
set.
actually die.
I needed that, all right? I needed that scarred lion on there. All right? They could have found one. There's casting. They could have had some interviews with some lions for this live action production. Did not happen. I want my money back.
Use some laser pointers to direct them.
Yeah,
in
laser
direction.
pointers. You know what? That's fine. Just saying. And said they're talking awkwardly throughout the whole movie, and there's some uncanny valley stuff going on. Oof.
I mean, the circus was able to make them do tricks. You would think Disney could make them do tricks.
I'm just saying, just have to have them move a little bit. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it would have been incredibly dangerous, but I would have been satisfied. Throwing it out there.
For Aristocats, at least there's 2 to 3 human characters. I mean, they're not the main characters; they're very minimal, but there are humans in the film. From
what I remember, yeah, there's also some troublesome scenes in that movie that I think do need to be addressed at some point. Some culturally inappropriate scenes from Disney's past. Which, wow, what another segue! Kevin's really good at this. There's another remake that we're going to talk about, and it's going to get touchy, so I'm just letting you guys know at home. We're going to talk about it. This is what you're here for. You're here for the conversation. Snow White has come under fire recently. And who's doing it? Peter Dinklage has come out of the woodwork here from his Game of Thrones fame. I guess he's not been doing too much lately, so he came out. And I don't know how you guys feel about this. I want to make sure I talk about it correctly. I just want to say Peter Dinklage came out when they were talking about the Snow White remake, the live action remake. He said in an interview, and this is according to the Hollywood Reporter where I pulled up this article, he said, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback when they were proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. But you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that effing backward story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. So, what do you guys think? I know it's Snow White's it's one of those stories where there's a lot of components, and I'm not trying to dance around anything. I promise you. I guess I'll give my take. All right. So the story of Snow White is Snow White as skin as white as snow, right? And I'm just throwing it out there. And they did cast a Latina actress as Snow White, even though the story tells her whole name comes from her skin tone, and she does run into the seven dwarves. And I think there's a conversation there. I mean, I see what he's saying, and I do want to address what he's saying as I kind of get it. I'm not a person of the shorter height, so I can't, relate to his struggles. But for the most part, the people of that stature are cast in comedic roles, and I understand he has elevated a character. I mean, he was nominated as, for an award, Peter Dinklage's portrayal as Tyrion Lannister. He's brought, I forgot his height never mattered to me. I mean, I saw it, I understood it, but it never mattered. Like, his performance was always so strong. It was always, I never thought about that. So I understand where he's coming from. Now, Adam, I know you were chomping at the bit to talk about this a little bit. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? Do you think it's a controversy? Is that blown out of proportion? Should it be addressed? Like, where are your feelings? Where are you lying with this?
It's just, I think because personally in my head, I never thought the dwarves in Snow White were, because it's a fairy tale,
right?
But I never associated them with real life, I guess.
Great,
so that's
right.
why
And
this movie struggles in my head, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole controversy struggles as well, because it's a fairy tale. I never associated them with anything, related to real life.
Right, and I think, and there's a conversation for that, because like we were saying about Aristocats, there's a very poorly aged, I think it's a Siamese cat. I think I want to say, I forget, and he's got
it's some
kind of Asian related cat, and he's got chopsticks, and he's got the symbol on his head, and
horrible accent,
and he's doing the Breakfast at Tiffany's accent. For those who don't know what it is, you can look it up, and it's really not well. That's a kind of stereotype that I think we've aged beyond. Do I think it should be removed from the movie? No, it's part of history as far as that movie's concerned. But if you're retelling the story, I think it's okay to update. All right, let's say it's okay to update or just remove it completely, whatever you want to do. It's a retelling. Snow White, I actually really agree with Adam here to the part where I never associated, people of short stature to dwarves from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's a fantasy. It's kind of like goblins. It was a conversation that happened relatively recently where Jon Stewart brought up the goblins in Harry Potter were related to the Jewish people. They were saying oh, clearly because they like gold and they have pointy noses and ears and they're shady and they're described as that. I don't associate that. I mean, maybe some people do go in and think that, but you've got some dark crap on your mind. I hate to tell you. I'm sorry. If you're really thinking that, that's on you. I never associated those two things whatsoever, and I don't associate it here. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is exactly that story. Do I think the actress's skin tone could potentially change the story? Yeah, I mean, but you can rewrite around it. You know what I mean? I mean, just because your name's Snow White, just change the story. Or you know what, even better, and this is my opinion, don't do that story. Do a retelling. I think that's where I'm at with that. Now, John, what do you think? What are some of your thoughts here on this, being Mr. Disney over there?
Well, like you were just saying, too, I never thought of the dwarfs as, people, per se. You just think of them as characters in a fantasy land. It's almost like one of those things, too, where people go into movies and they try to pick apart every little thing, oh, this isn't real, or this is portraying people wrong. Obviously people can't really fly either, so do we have to take that out of movies soon too? Hey, can't have it in. People can't really do this. You know, it's one of those things where it's always going to be a touchy thing of like, do we get rid of everything in history that was wrong and just get rid of history, or do we keep some things in so people can learn? Like, we know nowadays certain things are not right in the way they did them back then, but if you get rid of it completely, then we're just going to repeat those same things along anyway.
Right, and I know we can learn from it, and I think that's the biggest thing here. And you know, we could go on for a long time talking about racism in Disney films from when we were younger. There's a lot, you know. Unfortunately, there's a lot. There's a lot of things that just did not age well, and you know, it's ignorance, right? It is ignorance at the time, but kind of like what John said, you know, if you, I think you would leave it in, learn from it, and then in the future change it. You know, if it's not doing any, it's tough. It's a hard discussion. It really is. I feel like there's multiple sides to it, especially being, you know, white. I do have maybe a hard time relating to someone's experience. Like if I was a young, you know, African-American child and I saw Dumbo and I saw the Black Crows talking in that movie, you know, maybe it would bother me to an extent, you know, I don't know. It's really hard to say. But what I do want to say is Disney did address the situation. The Hollywood Reporter article brings up Disney kind of went to set the record straight as far as this is concerned. They said, to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. We look forward to sharing more as the film heads into production after a lengthy development period. So at this point, you know, they really haven't done anything as of yet. And I want to add to what Adam said, where, you know, they're kind of fantasy characters. What they said was the film has been in development for 3 years. The studio has been reimagining the dwarf characters since the earliest stages and have intended for the characters to be CG/animated. So there really was no attempt at using, you know, dwarf actors. It was always intended to be like these kind of fantasy CGI type characters for the 7 dwarfs.
Well, also too, I don't think you could ever see Disney or any other studio being like, hold on, let's hire 7 little people or 7 dwarfs or anything like that to play in this movie. I don't think it would go across well anyway.
It's tough. I don't know, because then maybe it would, because then you'd be honoring those people. Now, Julie, what do you think? Because I know, you know, you've had some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, it's a mixed thing. You know, dwarves are, you know, a quintessential fantasy character. They're in Lord of the Rings. They're in fairy tales from
Good point.
forever.
Good point. Lord of the Rings has one of my favorite dwarfs of all time, Gimli.
Right. So I actually don't know if I like the idea of them being CG. And you know, thinking about Peter Dinklage's comments, you know, his role, he's arguably probably one of the best characters of Game of Thrones. And you don't look at him for his height. I mean, obviously his character is treated differently in the show because of his height, because of his stature. But he's the smartest one in the room every single time. And it's one of those things, if you look at other roles, you know, he was an elf and being called an elf and, you know, oh, he's an angry elf. And so comparing his 2 roles there to see him like being made fun of in a silly way, an elf, but then actually being like a key player in Game of Thrones, it's really, I think, you know, people in that community were probably really inspired to see that of him. And I could see his frustration. You know, you worked really hard and you get to that Game of Thrones role and incredible performance, and then you go back to the jolly old dwarves, you know. So I think, you know, if they do listen to the community as they're in the production stages of this, you know, instead of being, you know, I mean, I get they have all their different names, happy, grumpy, whatever, but maybe make them a little more gruff, give them that Lord of the Rings edge to it a little bit. And I say cast people from the little people community, from the dwarf community, honor them that way, and listen to what they have to say. You know, it's one of those things, unfortunately. I would hope that it would have opened up a little bit more, but you mentioned, oh, you know, he hasn't been doing much lately, Peter Dinklage, and I think that's part of the problem with Hollywood. You know, he gave an incredible performance despite his stature. And you would hope that it would open more doors for him because he's an incredible performer, but I can't remember the last thing I've seen him in aside from Game of Thrones. You know, there needs to be more opportunities for people of all, you know, ethnicities, statures, abilities. So I think he brings up a good point. It's tough, you know, you don't think of Snow White without thinking of the 7 dwarves, but I think it's time to maybe reevaluate the story and make changes. Because again, if we look at all of these Disney reboots, they're the same story. They don't really do anything different.
Right.
And if they do something different, it's silly and it makes no sense. Like, you know, the changes they made for Beauty and the Beast, learning more about her mother, who cares? That doesn't affect the story at all. So, you know, if you're remaking Snow White, you know, tweak the dwarf characters a little bit. Don't make them so silly. Make them, you know, characters of importance. I don't know. There's a lot to think about.
I also
John,
feel like
go ahead, yeah.
he also maybe, I think also too where this comes about, like he feels very passionate about this, obviously. I also think like he also probably maybe he was hoping for the role and one of the dwarf characters or something, and he heard something wrong about it.
I don't know. You know, I can see where you're coming from that. You know, I can see maybe he wanted to be in it, but I don't know. I don't see him vying for Disney money. He seems like he's elevated himself a little above that with Game of Thrones. I could be wrong. Hey, you know, it's money is money.
And I think that's
I want the
I
Disney
think that's
pot
where his
too. Why not?
upsetment is. I think that's where his upsetment is. You know, a person of his stature was elevated to such a serious role.
Right.
And then he kind of sees this as, you know, going backwards.
Right, and I contest to that a little bit because then we have a Lord of the Rings series is obviously in production. There was a recent trailer. It didn't really show anything. It just said it was a prequel series about the Lord of the Rings. Now, are the dwarves in Lord of the Rings going to be played by people afflicted with dwarfism? Is that what's going to be? Are those roles going out to those people? I don't hear a conversation about that. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to say. I think Snow White. I think the main issue with Snow White, and I think that's where I become jolted a little bit with how I feel about it, is that it is more negative, right? As we're looking at Lord of the Rings, the dwarves are a powerful people. You know, they're a powerful race of people who work in the mines, and they're this strong, and they love gold. You know, there's more to their characters, and I think the way Disney can kind of work with this is, like you said, I think CGI could be the wrong way to go to some extent. You know, it depends, but I think, you know, unless you're using some kind of motion capture, but then you run into other issues with that as well. I think giving them more character, maybe making them like a people, you know what I mean? Like maybe an outcast of 7 guys that were part of this community, you know, giving them more to do than just be happy, sleepy, dopey. You know, I think there's ways we can work in more character that'll make them more interesting. And I feel like that should be able to satiate that, you know, the hatred that this movie seems to be getting before we even know anything about it.
Yeah,
I agree. Character development, you know, especially Dopey, that's a little problematic still.
Yeah, well, Dopey's problematic on a lot of levels, unfortunately, with his character. Now, what do you think, Adam? Just closing thoughts on this before we go on to our final topic here. You have anything you want to add, or what do you think is maybe the right way? I mean, I know that's not an easy question to ask somebody. Fortunately, I've asked you at this point. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I don't know. It's kind of like what John mentioned. You can't really please everybody, and
right.
if we go along that route, then you're gonna have to just start canceling everything.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think Hollywood's kind of like treaded into that. I feel like we've taken some steps back to some extent. I know it was worse at a heightened point, especially like prior to the pandemic and during the pandemic. I feel like everything was being canceled left and right. You know, there was no conversation for it. I feel like, I don't know, maybe we are taking some steps back in that. I think maybe we're having more level-headed. I think studios are realizing that. Disney's, I think, starting to realize that some of that woke discussion isn't making money or isn't what people really want. They want strong characters. That's what we've always wanted, and that's what I've always justed for. I love my women in movies. I love women. Don't get me wrong. I don't know why I had to announce that, but I decided to. I think strong female characters are really important, and I want them to be strong by showing me instead of telling me. Show me why this person's strong. Give me that other Ripley character. Horror heroines in general. I love horror movies that have strong women in them because they're the most interesting characters, and they last. Right. You know, there's a reason why we see these characters continue on. So back to my other point, like I said, I just think, why tell Snow White the same way we've told it 1,000 times before? Take that story, change it around, give me something new. You know, that's what I think people are looking for, and I think that's what people will remember more, which ties into my final story I really wanted to bring up. Now, this is an older article, but it's a more recent release. Mamoru Hosoda, who did Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which is a famous anime movie. I know, Adam, you're probably familiar with that movie.
Hmm.
Mirai was, I think, his last one. I think I said that right. I actually
Yeah.
I didn't see that one. I did see Summer Wars. He did the Digimon special movie, this little war of mine, which I love that movie. That's fantastic. Anyway, a side note. So he did something which I'm seeing a lot happen in Japan recently. We've seen them take the Disney stories and kind of retell them in a new way. And recently I was able to go to the theater and I was able to check out Belle. Now, for those who don't know, Belle essentially is the story of Beauty and the Beast. And I want to bring it exactly what he says. Hold on one sec here. All right. So essentially, it's inspired by the classic tale of Beauty and the Beast, but explores a digital theme by following an adolescent girl named Suzu, who becomes a popular pop diva named Belle in the virtual world through an application called You. So essentially, he's tying these two stories together. He's telling a modern take on an old story where Beauty and the Beast, falls in love with the Beast, yada, yada, yada. But this time he's taking technology and kind of throwing it in, telling his own unique version of the story and the Beauty and the Beast. And for me, I thought it was extremely well done. I really love this movie. This was also one of those surprises I wasn't expecting. But this article came up and I really wanted to bring it up because I wanted to get everyone's comments on it. He criticizes a lot of things that we've seen. He's criticizes something about Japanese cinema and also something about American cinema, which I thought was really interesting. So the article that I pulled up, it's from nmee.com. Mamoru Hosoda, the director of Mirai and Belle, has criticized how young female characters are handled and portrayed in Japanese animation. You only have to watch Japanese animation to see young women are underestimated and not taken seriously in Japanese society. It really annoys me to see how young women are often seen in Japanese animation, treated as sacred, which has nothing to do with the reality of who they are. Without naming anyone specific, Hosoda took aim at a certain great master of animation who always takes young women as the heroine. Obviously, he's referring to Miyazaki. To all those at home, he always has a female heroine in his films. He says, to be frank, I think he does it because he does not have confidence in himself as a man. The veneration of young women really disturbs me, and I do not want to be part of it. He added, sharing that he wants his female characters to be free from being the epitome of goodness and innocence, and this oppression of having to be like everyone else. Hosoda told that he prefers stories that show the good and bad in people. This tension is what being human is all about. I think that's really interesting because I feel like, especially from Japanese film, especially the Miyazaki films, there's a lot of like just pure innocence in all those movies where we never see, and even Disney movies to an extent, I feel like the protagonist is always this like cheerful, happy character, especially if it's a younger girl, which I feel like we don't get a conflicted character necessarily. Like we don't really get that selfish motivation for a character. And I really like where he's trying to go with this, where he's trying to elevate the material. For example, like in Beauty and the Beast, if we're going to make the reference to the movie he remade here. In Beauty and the Beast, Belle, she's a selfless, perfect girl. She doesn't want to do anything for herself. She's just in love and she's this praised heroine, but there's no conflict with her character. She's pretty much just moving the story along. What he's saying is he wants to see these characters have more inner conflict, which we see in his version of the story, where Belle, in his movie, she's more about, pertaining her, keeping her anonymity, right? She likes the fame. She likes everything like that. And she's afraid to come out and be herself. She's not a perfect character. She has these flaws. I think I like where he's going with this. Again, this is, just because a strong female character, a strongly written female character has character flaws, in my opinion. You're not just tough. You're not just badass. There's more to it than that. There's more layers. And I think this is a good example that we need to see come out in Hollywood more. Julie, as a woman, we're going to dive right into that. What do you think of that take? What do you think of that kind of where he's coming from?
Yeah, I mean, no character should be seen as perfect. If I'm thinking of a character that I don't like off the top of my head, Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy, she was just seen as like super powerful, amazing at everything she does. I mean, granted, I guess she had that conflict with like the dark and the light, but in Star Wars, who doesn't? But again, everything she did was just perfect. She was amazing at everything she did. Speaking of Belle, she wasn't perfect. She didn't make the best decisions. She had a lot of self-confidence issues, and that's why she found, comfort in the online world. So I do like to see that, especially even comparing Miyazaki and Disney animated protagonists, female or not. A lot of those characters, they are cheerful, they are happy, but especially Disney, they have a lot of trauma in their early lives, usually losing a parent figure, but they're still cheerful and happy. And Belle does a nice job of really showing how impactful that trauma is of losing a parent at a young age. And how that affects how the character moves within the world. And any good story, your characters are going to be conflicted. You're going to like things about them, you're going to not like things about them, you're going to be frustrated with them when they make mistakes, and that just creates more engaging storytelling.
I agree. Now, Adam, where are you on this, especially with comparing the two protagonists? I know as well as me, you're fluent with the anime community, seeing different films, seeing these portrayals, especially over the course of Miyazaki films and even Hosoda's films himself. Well, what do you think? How are your feelings on that?
I just like stories. I don't care who the character is. If
Right.
they're a good, compelling character and, they add to the story, I'm going to enjoy it. It doesn't make a difference to me who
Right.
they are,
Yeah.
what they look like at all. It just, I like, because obviously everything's got ratings and whatnot. And if it's a good rating and it's a good movie, then I'm probably going to enjoy it.
Right. I think there's a conversation there. I think a well-developed character is going to bring people to the yard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, John, as someone who's more fluent in Disney, who hates anime, what do you think about his comments on that as far as like the perfect protagonist, the perfect female protagonist? Do you wish like some more modern Disney movies showed some more of these flaws? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I agree with what Adam said too. I feel like it's a story that you're invested into. It's not necessarily the character or the main who it's going to be. It's always should be about the story. And if they want to have more main women characters, that's fine. I don't and they want to show different things, that's good. I feel like as long as we keep going forward with this stuff and not going back, I feel like it's stronger.
I mean, I will say Kevin might disagree with me, but the newer Disney movie Encanto, I'm obsessed with it. But I feel like that protagonist, it's a female, she's definitely conflicted. She's definitely not perfect, when she's comparing herself with her family. So I think, some of the Disney animated movies are making their way that way,
Right.
Even, Moana, she was, she went against her parents. She was frustrated. She made mistakes. She definitely wasn't perfect. So, I would just like to see, continue to see that trend.
Yeah, I think Encanto is a really good example, actually, and I'm really glad you brought that up. That is something that I think kind of breaks that mold where, I probably should give it more thought, in my own opinion there, where I think Encanto did do something different with the formula because she does show a layered character, which, I think we are getting a little bit better at. I think it's odd to think, but America is the least progressive in that angle as far as telling these more complex character stories from our animation. I feel like Japan's always had a leg up on us, even though their culture tends to be the more restrictive, more conservative kind of culture. Their stories seem to be more progressive in some angles, especially with giving out emotion. Like their stories always have more emotion than ours to some extent. And I think we're starting to see maybe America catch up in that reason. And Encanto's a really good example of that, actually, where they do have more about the emotional tale, the emotional journey with a character that's not just this, it's not just a kid's story, which I hate to use that as a device here. It's a story that's encompassing for everyone.
And I would say even too, a lot of the premise of Encanto is, her measuring herself up against her perfect family and then realizing that her perfect family members are not as perfect as she thought they were. So I think that's a really good, contender and a good comparison. Is it on the same intellectual level as Belle? Maybe not, but if you go and you see a movie and you enjoy it and you can relate and be empathetic to the characters, I think that's just a plus.
No, I agree. And the last comments he made, which this one really hit home for me too when I was listening to this, because it's not something we have too much of, which, we've dipped and dabbled here in Hollywood, is he talks about Steven Spielberg's portrayal of the internet in Ready Player One. And this is something that we're seeing in a lot of movies. I think now we're seeing a lot of these like shared universes. I hate to reference this movie in general, but the new Space Jam, Oh, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Talking about bad nostalgia right there. Their building of their shared universe. You know, we're seeing so much shared universe stuff. I mean, Marvel's the perfect example. Will that work out for them? It is so far, but you know, there's question of how far they're going to go. But I think he brings up, he also criticizes Hollywood tropes of a dystopian internet, highlighting Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One as an example, claiming they do not do any favors for women. Hosoda, who's the father of a young girl, told this paper here he wanted to empower her generation to be able to take control of their own digital destinies. They have grown up with the internet, yet are constantly told how malevolent and dangerous it is. That's a really interesting take. You know, we do see a lot of the negativity of the internet. Most stories that I come to, the internet's always a bad thing. Do you guys see that a lot? I know, like Ready Player One, the internet's always very dangerous. I don't see really the internet in this like positive light.
I guess it depends on where you go, how you use it, and whatnot.
Right. Well, we're talking about like just talk about
All
from
personal
from
perspective.
media perspective, right? Let's talk about from like movie perspective. I feel like it's usually like this dystopian place. Like if we're gonna reference Ready Player One, it's just this like shared universe where nobody is who they say they are, and you know
Right.
it's like this big contest, and there's all these people out to get you, and this terrible thing. The internet is a dangerous place. Let's be realistic here. You know, depending on what side you go on, and you know who you talk to, there has to be some precautions taken. But I think there's also a lot of positivity that doesn't get shown here. And in Belle, I thought we did get to see a lot of that. I don't want to go into too much spoilers because I do want people to watch the movie. But he does focus on like a more positive angle of the movie, which I kind of want to see more of. You know, I think we need to go with that where there's more positivity being spoken of on the internet.
Yeah, it all
I can agree
depends,
with
you
it.
know. The internet can give voice to the voiceless and allow people to express themselves in ways that they might not have the opportunity to or the confidence to do in their regular life. It's a balancing act. It can also be very toxic. Like Adam said, it all depends on how you engage in it and how you participate in it. You know, Twitter can be very toxic at times, but it's your
Oh
level of
boy.
engagement.
Yeah, it is. Now, what do you think, Adam, of the internet being a construct to tell a story? Do you like that idea? Are you sick of it yet? Do you like it? What are your thoughts on that being like, because I feel like that's what we're moving into, a lot of these kind of stories now, especially Japan, and not even just this director, but just in general. I think we're moving a lot into the video game online world story simulations that we're given. What are your thoughts on that? Over it?
I mean, I definitely think that it's very inundated right now with a bunch
Yeah,
of stories that are trying to be, I guess number one, if you will.
right.
Um, I think that they all seem to be like gravitating towards the same story-esque, but I think there's so many more different branches that they can go down if they, do them properly. So
Right.
I
Like,
don't want to say I'm over it,
yeah. You want more Sword Art
because
Online? Is that what you
yeah,
want?
hmm,
Julie like threw up over
give
there.
me
I gotta watch
different.
out.
Give me different.
Give me
I
no.
will
All
take
right,
different.
all right.
I concur.
Yeah, we'll agree. No more Sword Art Online. All right, let's take a break. You know, I hate to say it. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna get canceled because of that. That's another ravenous community. Want to talk about something? Now, John, to close this out, this conversation here, what do you think? Do you want? And now you know nothing about anime, as we made clear. You won't watch Belle, even if I recommend it 1,000 times. I doubt you're gonna watch it. What do you want? Do you want to see some American stories adapt the internet? Do you want to see that come into play more? What do you think? Do you want to see that as like an inclusive storyline?
I mean, I guess it could be, but not really looking forward to it. I mean,
Because you're old.
I feel, yeah, I'm an old man. I'm a crotchety old man over here. But like, I mean, I guess if they do it, as long as they do it well, I don't really care how it's done.
Yeah, because it's interesting in that
Or
article, Hosoda, he's saying pretty much like Spielberg. There's more to the article. I'm not going to dive too much deeper into it, but he does talk about how Spielberg's like older, is an old man, and doesn't understand the internet. Hosoda's like 50 something. I'm just throwing it out there. He's not a young guy, so for him to say he understands the internet better than somebody else, maybe he's more adapt to it, but I don't know. That's a tough comment when you're in that age range and you're saying you get the internet, but somebody else doesn't. I don't know. I think it's a promising concept to come. Disney really hasn't tried to do anything with that yet. I mean, the closest they came to was the Wreck-It Ralph series.
I was just gonna say that.
And that was mixed in my opinion. I think the first one worked as far as just that whole like arcade cabinet crossing over thing was kind of cool. Once they got onto the internet in the second one, I really wasn't a fan. I could kind of leave that movie. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what it's about. Don't even remember anymore. But it's interesting to see what happens with animation. There's a lot of promising things that can be done, I think.
It's tough. I mean, like Adam said, I feel like the same stories are just being told over and over again. Your protagonist creates an avatar and is thrust into this virtual world and finds themselves in one way or another and has conflicts and doesn't know who this person is or that person is, or they're stuck and they need to get out. I mean, you can argue that with any story. There's only 7 universal stories that are told over and over again, but when it comes to the internet storyline, it all just seems to be the same. Even the Matrix is an internet story. He's in an internet world and comes out of it. I don't know. I want to see more creativity. I feel like it's just stale. Maybe it's just not my cup of tea. I'm not the biggest fan of those movies. I did enjoy Belle, but it just seems to be the same version a different version of the same story.
More sword art, please. More sword art online.
No,
that's all we want. We want it. More sword art. I'm championing it. All right, but before we close out, I want to end with something. If I throw a curveball here real quick. Now, 2021 obviously has come to an end. Clearly, we're in 2022. I don't know how to make that more apparent. Yay, we're all cheering. Now, I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask each of you, what was your favorite movie of 2021? Now, it doesn't have to be the best movie. It doesn't have to be just the movie you think you enjoyed the most throughout the year. Like, it doesn't have to be like this Oscar winner pick, because we're not about that here on this channel. I'm going to go first, because I know I threw this on you guys. To those at home, I tried to prep everybody with some ideas. I just thought this would be a nice way to close it out. Now, my favorite movie of 2021, without a doubt, was Dune. The review just went up recently on the channel. I'm not shilling for my channel or anything like that. I'm just throwing it out there. Dune was really the best movie I saw this year, because it made me become escaped in this new universe where I've always heard of Dune, but I've never really found myself going to look deeper into it. After I saw this movie, I've been obsessed with it. Julie knows. I haven't been shutting up about Dune. It makes me want to read the books. I'm researching old materials, old shows. There was a show that had James McAvoy that only came out in the UK. I didn't know about any of this. I think it's crazy. It's so exciting to have this new universe to talk about. But beyond that, Denis Villeneuve just brought on such a beautifully crafted movie. It's tough, like I said in my review, to recommend this to everyone. But for me, I found myself just purely escaped with this. Between the cinematography, everything I don't shut up about on this channel is in that movie, from practical effects, the storytelling, the actors, all that stuff Kevin rants and raves about is in this movie. I mean, how could I not have loved it? Dune was just a phenomenal experience. And I saw it in IMAX. It was one of the first movies I went back to, when the pandemic kind of was slowing down a little bit, to go see. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. It was probably it's up there as one of my all-time favorite movie experiences, just being surrounded in that atmosphere and music. So yeah, I'm going to give you guys, I think you should watch Dune. That's going to be my recommendation. If you're going through the list of 2021, here in New Jersey, we got a snowstorm. We're in a blizzard right now. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm going to try and get caught up on some stuff. That's what I'm going to recommend to you guys. Who's ready? I'm going to throw it out there. Who wants to go? All right, I'm going to pick then. Julie's going.
Well, thanks for the curveball. If I had to pick, you're probably gonna say it doesn't count, but my favorite thing that I've watched this year, and you're gonna roll your eyes, is Bo Burnham's Inside. It's not a movie, it's a comedy special. God. But if I'm talking about the thing that I enjoyed watching the most this year, it's that. I've been listening to the music nonstop since June. His commentary on the internet, on society as a whole, I just think is so intelligent, really thoughtful. The fact that he did it by himself in, a little guest house. It's a really great spectacle to watch. I really enjoyed it. If I have to pick a movie, I'm gonna pick Spider-Man: No Way Home for obvious reasons.
No, I like the Bo Burnham pick. For me, the reason I don't like it, and I'm gonna tell everybody why I don't, is because she overkilled it. She played over. When you hear the music 1,000 times, it starts to lose its luster. I think that happens with anything. When you see it or hear it 1,000 times, you start to be like, all right, I kind of had enough. But no, I think there's merit to it. I think it was that was a surprise too to come out of this pandemic with something special and unique. Spider-Man 2, obviously. I'm not gonna tell you that's not good. That's obviously perfect in a lot of ways. Adam, what do you got for me? What are you thinking?
Okay, so the nostalgia was way too powerful in Spider-Man, so it has to be Spider-Man, right?
Right.
But if I was to pick another movie,
Okay.
I would say that Tick Tick Boom on Netflix.
Wow, that's a surprise. I did not expect
That was great.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Now, what were your? Why did you enjoy that so much? Like, give me a little insight into here, because that's a curveball from you. That's not something I would expect to hear you say today. That wouldn't have been on my 2022 bingo list right now to hear that.
Adam and I coming in with the musicals.
Seriously,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
You know, Kevin, you're throwing curveballs at us. I'm gonna throw them right back at you.
Oh, I'm ready.
It was just written so well, and the music was really enjoyable in it. I'm generally not a fan of musicals, but that one was just, I don't know. I think it was because the story was so good. And, of course, Andrew Garfield, I couldn't get enough after seeing him in No Way Home. So it was like,
it was just a little
keep
more,
going.
right? It was like perfectly timed almost with the come out
Yes.
alongside that Spider-Man release. It's like,
Yep.
oh, here we go. A little more Andrew, a little more.
No, it was really good.
I watched it. I wasn't a huge fan necessarily. I didn't hate it. That means anything.
You're not a big musical person either.
I'm not. I hate to say it, but I think Andrew Garfield's really good in that movie. If I'm to say anything, I think his performance was escapist at times. If that's the word I like to use. That's the word of the day for me at this point. He did really good. I mean, he carries a lot of that movie. Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is a conversation we'll probably have at some point here on the channel. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of his stuff. The man can't write a segue from spoken word to song to save his life. I think there's a lot of issues where it's like, hey, we're talking, song. Like, what the hell happened? Like, he didn't segue into that naturally. Maybe it has to do with his Broadway experience, I don't know. That maybe more educated people should speak on that before the comments come after me. That's just how I feel. But Tick Tick Boom's a good one. I'd recommend it, especially if you're interested in anything, that movie has to do with. I've never seen Rent, so I have no idea what they were even talking about half the time about Rent. I just know the name.
Well,
Rent.
Rent was very minimal in Tick Tick Boom. It was more so that original project, and then the creation of Tick Tick Boom. That's its own, separate thing. But funny anecdote with Lin-Manuel. He was recently in an interview, and they were talking about, because I guess he was filming Tick Tick. Andrew Garfield was filming Tick Tick Boom, and then the leak came out about him potentially being in Spider-Man, and Len goes and he goes, Andrew, you in the new Spider-Man movie? He goes, no. Why would you say that? I'm not. No. Like, it's super squeaky, like defensive high pitch, and I thought that was hysterical that he had to like hold that in.
That's really funny. But maybe it doesn't reference Rent too much. Just maybe if I knew anything about Rent, I maybe would have been more interested. His life is interesting, though. I will say that it did force me to go look up some like trivia about the movie and try to understand what's going on. But Andrew Garfield should not be ignored for his performance at the very least in that movie. Say what you want about the story, I think there's issues, but his performance, man, that is something that should be acknowledged. I think learning to play the piano, singing. Just in general, man, that was really impressive. John, you're rounding it out, man. I hope it's a big one. I'm ready.
Oh, it's a big one.
I hope so. Impressive.
I probably only seen like 8 movies the whole year.
God, I hope they were good.
Oh, they weren't. But
oh no,
the one that I think was probably one of like the ones I kind of remember because I'm an old man.
Right.
Was Nobody. I felt like that was I felt like that was a good movie this year. I thought like it was just funny and action packed, and I felt like it was one of those movies that, or maybe it was also because I haven't seen like a new movie in a while, but like that one sticks out to me right now.
I know. I found myself like rewatching old stuff this year. I was really trying to catch up. I always feel like I'm behind. Like I'm trying to catch up on last year's movies. Just then I get to this year's movies. That seems to be the case. But that was a surprise. Check out the review on the channel if you guys haven't. But nobody, by all accounts, it should have been just a carbon copy Taken movie, right? I mean, just an older man doing action scenes, but it's not that. It's not John Wick, right? That's, I think, maybe the biggest comparison was people thought Bob Odenkirk was the new John Wick, which if you pitched that to me, I would have laughed in your face and shown you the door. But no, it worked by all accounts. I think it's a fantastic movie. Like John said, I think it surprised me with its action. Set Bob Odenkirk up as an action star. Who'd have thunk? Not me. I didn't think Better Call Saul there was going to be,
man.
And good for him. I feel bad. He had a heart attack last year, and I know he's recovering on set of Better Call Saul, which is crazy. And he went right back to work shortly after. Good for him. Seriously. But no, Nobody's a good recommendation. I think it's also on HBO Max right now, which is a good recommend if you guys haven't checked it out. We should probably do that more when we talk about things like where you can find it, where you can watch it. I always forget to do that because everyone's like, oh, I don't know how to watch that, Kevin. What the hell's wrong with you? Probably should tell me. Maybe. But all right, guys. Well, thank you. I want to thank my esteemed cast here of everyone joining me. Adam, if people want to find you, where can they follow you? If they want to take a look at what you have to say.
I am pretty active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Cosmicality. Can link that somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, we'll throw a link in there. We'll let the people know where that is. John, how about you? Where can the people? Obviously, they can find you on the channel. We can find everybody here on the channel. Obviously, we got something going on. John, if people want to talk to you, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter. I am the Bearded John on Twitter.
Oh, I like that. I always love that. And Julie, if people want to talk to you, where can they find you?
I actually have to look up my Twitter handle because I don't know it off the top of my head. Oh man, that shows how much I use it.
She actually is at Real Movie Girl, I believe, is her Twitter handle. If you guys want to talk to her and talk about anything, because she's not a guy, so we gave her like a little special title as being the exception to the rule here on the channel. If you guys want to talk to me, at the Real Movie Guy on Twitter, make sure you follow the guy, the Real Movie Guys, on Instagram. If you want to follow me personally for all my beautiful hot takes that I have, at GasMassDragon27 at Twitter, and that's my Twitter handle if you guys want to talk to me. If you guys are watching this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We made such good progress this year, guys. Over 100 subscribers. I know that seems small and maybe insignificant to some people. For us, that's crazy. Who'd have thought we would be able to do that? We had such good growth. And I really want to thank everybody there. On Instagram, we're over 1,000 subscribers over there. People are watching, looking for our content. If you have any comments, make sure you link it down below. Any questions for us? Hopefully, I'd like to maybe do a Q&A segment on these. And, if people have questions for us, you want us to ask at the end of each conversation, maybe we'll try to answer those. We'll have to go around, have everybody talk about everything. Otherwise, make sure give us a listen on YouTube. We're on so many podcasting platforms. I'm not even going to list them all. Just search for us on your local podcasting platform. We should pop right up. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We are the Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys. You should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.